The rope bit into Rosie's wrists, sharp and unyielding, as she was shoved into a dim shack at the prairie's edge. Dust clung to her tangled hair, and her dress hung in tatters, smeared with mud. Across from her stood Clay Mercer, his tall frame looming, a crooked smile twisting his lips. His eyes gleamed with malice. On the rickety table between them lay a paper with a forged seal. Clay slammed his fist down on it. "Sign it, and your pain stops," he growled. Rosie shook her head, lips trembling. Her voice, when it came, was a whisper. "I won't." Clay leaned closer, his breath sour with whiskey and smoke. "You think you've got a choice?" He lifted a branding iron from the fire, its glowing tip hovering near her cheek. The stench of hot metal filled the air, and Rosie flinched, a whimper escaping her. Her arms, bound tightly behind her, ached as the chair beneath her creaked. Clay's grin widened. "Sign, or you hang." He pressed the paper against her chest and thrust the iron against the wood beside her head. Sparks flew, and Rosie's tears carved tracks through the dirt on her face. She prayed for rescue, but the shack was silent. With a sudden jerk, Clay dragged her outside. The prairie sun blinded her, and the dry wind tore at her dress. He marched her to a lone tree, tossing a rope over a branch. The coarse fibers cut into her waist as he bound her arms. Her feet left the ground, and she dangled, swaying like a broken doll. Clay stepped back, admiring his cruelty. "This is justice for defiance," he sneered. The rope tightened with every breath, bruising her skin, screaming pain through her shoulders. Rosie's mind reeled, her heart pounding as she thought of her lost family and the life she might never live. The world blurred into heat and fear. Clay circled her, predatory. "You'll sign when you can't take it anymore." Her voice cracked. "Please." The prairie stretched endlessly around her, no town, no lawman, no hope. Only the creak of the rope and Clay's cruel laugh. Rosie felt smaller than ever, her dignity stripped, her hope fading. Yet she whispered, "I'll give you everything. Just let me live." Her words dissolved into the wind, but a spark inside her refused to die. Her story couldn't end here. But who would challenge Clay Mercer to save her? And if someone came, would they risk everything for a broken girl? The wind howled through the tree's branches as Rosie hung, twisting in the breeze. Her lips moved in silent prayer, faint but defiant. Across the field, a rider slowed his horse. Harlan Reed, weathered by 56 years of sun and dust, sat tall in the saddle. The sight of Rosie strung up hit him like a blow. No one deserved such cruelty. He dismounted, his boots sinking into the brittle grass, his hand resting on the bowie knife at his belt. He moved deliberately, not rushing, his eyes fixed on the scene. Rosie glimpsed him through her pain, hope flickering in her chest. "I'll give you everything," she gasped. "Just save me." Harlan didn't respond immediately. He studied the cruel knots binding her, meant to cut and torment. With one swift slice, he severed the rope. Rosie fell, but he caught her before she hit the ground. She was frail, her bones sharp beneath her torn dress, her shoulder swollen, her knees bloodied. She clung to him, trembling. "You're safe now," Harlan said, his voice rough but steady. Her tears soaked his shirt. A branch cracked nearby. Harlan's mare snorted, and he stiffened. He knew that sound wasn't the wind. Gently, he propped Rosie against the tree and turned. Clay Mercer emerged from the brush, revolver in hand, his smile venomous. "Old rancher playing hero, cutting down my prize," he taunted. Harlan kept his knife low, eyes locked on Clay. "Put the gun away, Clay," he said calmly. "Or you'll face the law by sundown." Clay laughed, spitting dust. "The law? For a runaway and an old fool?" He cocked the revolver. Rosie's heart raced, but Harlan's voice stayed steady. "Kidnapping. Fraud. Those knots and that forged paper won't fool a judge. Clay's smile faltered, his eyes flicking to Rosie. You told him? She shook her head, but her fear betrayed her. Cursing, Clay raised the gun. In a flash, Harlan stepped aside, his knife slicing through the air. It struck Clay's hand, knocking the revolver into the grass. Before Clay could recover, Harlan tackled him, pinning him face down and binding his wrists with the same rope that had held Rosie. Rosie staggered to her feet, clutching Harlan's arm. Clay spat curses, but his fight was gone. Harlan pulled him up. We take him to the marshal. Let the law see his lies. Rosie nodded, tears falling. Thank you, she whispered. Without you, I'd be gone. Harlan's gaze softened with respect. The prairie wind carried a promise as they moved toward town. But the story wasn't over. Clay still had a trick to play. The sun dipped low as Harlan tied Clay to his mare's saddle. Rosie walked beside them, her steps unsteady but growing stronger. She glanced at Clay, fearing he'd break free, but Harlan's knots held firm. Every step toward the marshal's office felt like justice. Rosie tried to smile, but her bruises stung. Will the law listen to me? She asked. Harlan nodded. You've got your word. And me to back it. Rosie felt a spark of belief, she might be safe. They reached an old lumber yard as the sky turned orange. Harlan slowed, scanning the shadows. The air was too still. Suddenly, Clay twisted, slipping the loosened rope and drawing a hidden knife. Rosie screamed. Harlan drew his own blade, and the men clashed among the timber stacks. Clay's eyes burned with rage. She's mine, he snarled. Harlan stood firm. She belongs to herself. Clay lunged, his knife slashing wildly, grazing Harlan's shirt. The fight was short but fierce. Rosie watched, pressed against the shed, her heart pounding. Harlan caught Clay's arm, twisted, and sent the knife skidding. He pinned Clay down, binding him tighter. Rosie picked up the fallen blade, her hands shaking with rage, but she dropped it. I won't be like him, she whispered. Harlan hauled Clay up. The outlaw swore revenge, but Harlan's resolve was iron. The marshal's men arrived as darkness fell, dragging Clay away as he shouted threats. Rosie turned to Harlan. I said I'd give you everything, but my life is mine now. You gave it back. Harlan's eyes held pride. Keep that strength. It's worth more than gold. They walked toward the ranch under a starlit sky, Rosie's head held high. The prairie felt free again. She couldn't erase the past, but she could build a future. Harlan had shown her courage wasn't about age or strength, it was about standing tall. The frontier taught hard lessons. How often do we ignore those in need? Who will we be when the moment comes, a bystander or the one who cuts the rope? Rosie found her answer in Harlan Reed. Her story, born in pain, was now one of resilience. And somewhere, Clay Mercer plotted his next move, but for now, Rosie was free.